What's up guys, welcome back. Jumping right into it per usual, 2019 Honda Grom on the lift. It's already pretty much stunt setup, except for an oil pump and clutch springs, which we're going to do today. Now before we can get inside that cover, we need to take this right side rear set off. Now before you guys come at me in the comments, you don't have to take this rear set off. It's a personal preference. If you take this 12mm bolt off at the bottom, and you loosen the 19mm nut at the top, you can rotate this rear set just enough to get the case out and off. Me, again, personal opinion, I take it all the way off. I think it makes life easier, gets it out of your way. It's not that big of a deal. It's a 19mm socket on the right, a 14mm on the left, and you break it loose. If you don't want to do it manually and you have an impact, go ahead and use it. Use a 19mm socket, pull the nut off, switch it over to a 12mm socket, and zip the bottom one off. Now the rear set will pull completely off, you'll be able to remove it. Now it may seem obvious, but if we're going to work inside the motor, we've got to drain the oil out of the motor. 17mm socket, crack your drain plug loose, let it drain. I've had a lot of questions about this as well. There's two plugs on here. I'm pointing at the one on the left. The one on the right is currently draining the oil. The one on the right is the one that you want. The one on the left is not a drain plug. Do not pull the left one. I'll cover that in a separate video, but for now, if you need to drain your oil, pull the right one. Now jump up to the top cover. There's this clutch cable coming in and we need to get that loose so we can give ourselves some play. 12mm nut at the top, get it loose, and we'll come back to this in a second. Next up, you're going to pull your dipstick and that one 8mm nut holding that clutch cable on. This will give you enough freedom and movement to pop it right out. Once you do that, zip the rest of the 8mm nuts out and this cover will come off. Except most of the time, it doesn't. Now it's stuck on there from heat and pressure. So, a little hack, rotate this clutch arm and it'll push itself off and you don't have to do anything. It's pretty neat. Now you can see here when I flip this over, there's that little clutch arm engaging this little plunger. Sometimes that plunger will fall out, and if you hear a little metal ting or you find this laying in the case and you pull it off, now you know where it goes. Another little hack you can use is take one of those 8mm bolts and pull your screen out. Now because the Grom doesn't have an oil filter, it has this little screen, you just wipe it off, and it has an oil spinner, which is what we're working on right there. And what it does is it spins oil around, centrifugal force pulls all the particles to the outside, and they stick to the walls. So anything that's heavy or nasty or gunky gets stuck, and the oil keeps flowing. You can see here I've wiped it out with my finger, so exact same concept. Use a rag, put your finger inside the rag, careful of this sharp edge, and wipe this thing out. Get it real nice and clean before we take it off so you don't have any of that junk falling in your engine. Well, now that it's all clean, we can pull the spinner itself off. You're going to need your special socket, and I'll link that below, and you throw that on an impact gun and it'll zip it right off. Make sure you keep this stuff organized because a lot of it looks the same when you start doing stuff with the clutch or the spinner or whatever it may be. You got your nut on this side, a washer, and the spinner housing itself. Put those with the cover you took off earlier. Now that our spinner's off, it makes it really easy to access this clutch. Now you can do this without taking the spinner off. Again, I choose to because I clean everything nice and easy. Pull those 310s off, alternating in a triangle pattern, and we're going to take the plate off. Now you can see my right hand there. On the right hand side of the screen is the Chimera plate, the left side is the stock one. You need to pull this bearing out and move it over to your aftermarket plate. You may also notice that there's only 3 holes in the stock and there's 6 holes in the aftermarket. We'll come back to that here in a second. Go ahead and take those old springs out, put your new 60% springs in. I suggest the Sex Machine Racing springs. And again, here you'll see 3 bolts. Now, when you put these 3 bolts on, there's 6 spots and there's 6 holes in this new plate. But from the factory, Honda does not give you 6 places to put bolts in. They only give you 3. So my suggestion to you is to order a straight up pump 6-bolt mod. As you can see, here's the 6-bolt mod I talked about. This is from Straight Up Pumps and I suggest you do it. My customer decided not to. He said he only wanted the 3-bolt, which is what I put in. Now to get those bolts tight, you can use a penny trick like I'm showing you. Stick a penny between the gears, but I do not suggest doing this. That penny falls down and it'll go through where this pump sits and fall into one of those holes. Now speaking of oil pumps, why do we do them? As you can see, in my left hand is a stock oil pump. When I'm simulating a wheelie here with the water bottle, bear with me, all the oil goes to the back and the pump can no longer grab oil. So when the bike goes vertical, you're pretty much running your engine dry. Now, with a straight up pump, you have that copper tube that's in my hand. Doesn't matter where the bike's at, you're always picking up oil. Unless the bike is literally upside down, which at that point, I don't think you're worried about oil. Now that we know what it does, let's show you how to replace it. First things first, pull your 10mm bolts out, and the whole thing will come out. It comes out as one unit, except for these two little dowels. Now these dowels are removable, but they need to stay in the bike. Sometimes they get stuck in the stock oil pump when you pull it out. If they do, make sure you put them back in the case. Now, do not shove your pump in like this. If you look at the back, there's a hole, like I said with the penny, that you need to put the pump through. That copper tube needs to go through that hole. If it doesn't and you're forcing things, you're doing it wrong. Stand back, watch the video again, do whatever you gotta do. Don't force any of this stuff. It should come off nice and easy, and the new one should go in nice and easy. Once the pump's on and you get those bolts torqued down with the torque wrench, put your oil spinner back on, put the washer on, put the nut on, and then you can put your gasket and the cover on. And just like that, this bike is set up to do wheelies. The oil is going to pump while it's in there, and the clutch is going to help us pop it up to get to balance point. A lot faster than a stock bike. Put your case back on, and get your clutch cable back in first. You're still going to have a bunch of play, and then starting at the top, 8mm bolt, work your way around in a star pattern or a hex pattern or however you do it. Don't work in a circle. Put your drain plug back in, don't forget it, and then tighten up the 19mm and the 12mm on the right hand side. And when it comes down to oil, I use the Honda GN4 1030 non synthetic. There's a lot of people at Honda who get paid a lot of money to figure out what oil they should put in their bikes. This is what the manual calls for, and I've never had an issue. Running synthetic in bikes, I have had an issue. I suggest this and nothing else. Put your dipstick back in, and you're done. Drop it down and deliver it to your customer. If you're at home working on your own bike and you're watching this, I hope it helped. If you're planning on doing it, make sure you have all the proper tools and you'll be fine. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, or if there's anything you guys want to see me do or learn how to do on your Grom or another bike, let me know. As always, stay hungry, stay humble, stay motivated, and never stop riding.